So E, the second E in leader stands for emotionally engaged. Okay. Whew. I remember anecdote time when I was a freshman, sophomore in college, 19, 20, years of age, sat down next to this guy in one of my classes, and it was an English class. We were speaking of different types of intelligences, and we got around to emotional intelligence in terms of like IQ, like your intelligence quota, and that really measures your ability to probably regurgitate facts or to, process information. But people hardly recognize that there are other types of intelligences, I believe. And this guy literally doubted the existence of emotional intelligence. And so I'm trying to give him grace because we're 19, we probably haven't been exposed to that level of information about different types of intelligences. But I knew, even at that moment in my life where I was like, there's no way this dude is doubting that there is emotional intelligence and that it is a skill that we should all learn at the ripe old age of 19. Like, how have you gotten through life without being able to read, pick up on, decipher people's emotions? Okay. So that was an anecdote because men absolutely have seemed to escape the realm of emotional intelligence, and it is something that is highly desired and absolutely necessary in marriage. Okay. Being able to move through this world with a certain understanding of emotions, emotional triggers, okay, trauma responses to things, having a good grasp on your emotions and being able to steward over your emotions is essential to make it through this life, my dear, my king, okay? Emotional intelligence, emotional stability, and availability are necessary components of, the self to be able to thrive in relationships with others. Being able to manage your emotions, being able to pick up on other people's emotions and navigate them in a peaceful, respectful way is essential for relationships and especially for marriage. And so if you were hoping to enter into a marriage, this is an area that the Lord would have pruned and developed in you in your singlehood, okay, before the ring. He wants to know that you can be a provider of emotional security and emotional availability in marriage. Another level of provision that we basically touched on earlier. Okay, you need to be able to provide a safe space for your wife's emotions, to process her emotions, to maybe vent sometimes, okay? As each other's partners, you will be venting to one another. You will be sharing in the highs and lows of life. You will be going through the trenches together. And you all need to know how to respectfully resolve conflict, how to speak to one another in love, how to lead in love, okay? How to share what's on your heart in a loving, gentle way, okay? And these are all things under the umbrella of emotional intelligence. Now, emotional availability means that you have an emotional connection that you are actively nurturing with your partner, okay? With your partner. So being emotionally unavailable means that you maintain conversations at a surface level, that there is no real emotional connection, that there is no support, okay, mutual support in that relationship, that you are probably just entertaining a counterfeit, honestly, because you will not connect emotionally with someone who is not for you. You all will have a disconnect, okay? And then emotional stability is being able to be in charge of your own emotions, of your own fluctuations throughout the day, your moods and so on, so that you are not triggering or being a nuisance perhaps to the people around you, that you were able to manage your emotions in a healthy, successful way. So these are all necessary. They're all part of and they're all necessary for a successful marriage, a successful relationship in general. Being able to be a good steward of your own emotions, okay? So a husband needs to be emotionally invested in the health and success of the relationship, even though he does not inherently provide that in terms of the different energies. Remember, we spoke of men providing sort of like the tangible structures and women providing like the intangible aspects of the relationship. This is still part of his provision, being able to provide a safe, intangible space for the woman to dwell in her emotions, for her to express her emotions, for his family to be able to feel things, without him getting irritated or annoyed or being put off, I guess, by the expression of emotions in his home. Okay, we should be able to be the most free with our family, okay, with friends, with loved ones. And if that is not a safe space that is cultivated for, between the couple and for the family, there's something that's off there. There's something missing there, okay? So I really want you all to grasp how important it is for you to not only be emotionally intelligent, but to be aware of your own emotions and to be emotionally engaged in the well-being of your wife and your relationship with her, okay? So this means listening to understand, okay? Being emotionally engaged and emotionally unavailable. A good portion of that, of being a supportive friend, really, because that's what you all are in marriage. You are each other's best friends. Goes back to the basics, being able to listen to one another, not to respond, but simply to listen, to lend a listening ear, okay? To be a shoulder to cry on, an ear to vent to, okay? Being able to, not all the time into your wife's needs, but to be able to offer a solution sometimes, or to just let her vent depending on what she needs in that moment. And of course, having that energy reciprocated when you're the one who needs to vent or needs a moment, to just share what's on your heart. There should be a safe emotional space, that is constantly cultivated between the couple so that at any time they can pull on each other and lean on each other when necessary. And this is all part of being a loving husband, being able to cultivate an atmosphere of a safe emotional landing, safe landing for your emotions, okay? So the Ephesians 5 man, he brings out the best in his wife by investing in her, okay? By loving her as he loves himself, by treating her as he would treat himself, as the Lord has cultivated him for a season to be able to do so, okay? So he pours into her from the overflow that runs through him, that he is filled up by the Spirit, okay? So he's able to pour out because he's an empty vessel. He's full of the Holy Spirit and is able to then pour out, okay? And relies on the Holy Spirit to fill him up again so he can pour out again. And that is how the cycle continues. And so this is a great way to ensure that he is emotionally in tune and emotionally engaged, because he will be able to pick up on his wife's needs more if he is in tune with her and with the Holy Spirit as well. Because the Holy Spirit will tell you all things, will nudge you, will be a helper, will bring your attention to things, okay? And so it's so important that you are connected to the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit will tell you a lot about your relationship. Will tell you if your husband just needs to vent or needs a listening ear or needs a solution, needs to brainstorm. And you'll know how to respond in the moment, okay? And vice versa for the king. Holy Spirit will tell you so much about your wife the more time you spend in the Spirit, okay? So this type of love, this type of emotional engagement, this type of emotional availability can only happen when the man leaves his parents and cleaves to his wife. We could not leave that out in this analogy, in this part of the equation. Honey, leaving and cleaving starts with the man. Adam left his parents. For this reason, a man will leave his home and cleave to his wife. He will leave his mother and father. And it's not just a physical leaving, it's an emotional leaving as well. I'm not saying that you can't communicate with your family, obviously, but when you transition into marriage, your emotional support primarily comes through your partner. Come on, Holy Spirit. Your emotional support primarily comes through your spouse, your partner. It is healthy to have friends, to rely on, different types of counsel, different points of view. But you should not be running to your mom for every problem you have in marriage. You shouldn't be running to your mom at all, to parents. You should run to God first when you all face conflict, okay, disagreement. You should not be running to other people outside of your marriage to fix something that's going on within your marriage. You need the Holy Spirit all up and through your marriage, not anyone else. Not Karen, not Tom. Okay? You need the Holy Spirit up in there. And so a part of that is, reminding men that when you leave your parents, you cleave to your wife. You work things out with your wife. You remain emotionally available for your wife. You do not cheat on her by having friends who know more about your relationship than she does. You do not run to your mom every time you have an emotional problem, or you run to your father every time you have a financial problem. You have left and cleft, King. Respect your wife, honor your wife by being dedicated to your wife emotionally, financially, and spiritually. Okay? And that will go a long way in your marriage. Okay? So, the couple will not be able to grow organically or properly if the man is still emotionally attached to his mom or financially dependent on anyone else, including his dad. Okay? So, it is not a respectable place to be if you still rely on your mom for the majority of your emotional support or your dad for the majority of your financial support. You are not ready to take care of a wife if you are still leaning on your parents so heavily. You need to be able to leave your parents for a season before you can even cleave to your wife. And that is your building season. That is when, God will take you away from your parents, build and develop you, and then allow you to bring a wife on board. Okay? So I hope you all really grasp that emotional investment, emotional availability point. And our last letter, R, is responsive to her needs. Okay? A leader is responsible too, but is responsive to his wife's needs. And please excuse the background noise if you all can hear that. I obviously do not live alone. So the love between them, between the husband and wife, should be marked by giving, okay? By giving. Of course, if one is giving, the other is receiving, but the other should be giving so that the one can receive, okay? So it really is a beautiful dance of giving and receiving, okay? So the love between them should be marked by giving, by sacrificing, okay? By compromise, healthy compromise, okay? Maturing in love, and empathizing with one another. Okay, so these are all beautiful things to really build a successful, long-term, healthy marriage, okay? Being able to understand that love is sacrificial, that you will be called to make sacrifices, that you will have to be attuned to each other's needs because they won't always align. Okay, what one person desires in one season may not align with the other person's desires. And so how do we make sure that we're still meeting each other's needs? And how do we make sure we're responsive to each other's needs? But in this specific example, the king is responsive to his queen's needs. And that embodies financial needs, okay, emotional needs, spiritual needs for leadership, okay, for guidance, okay. The Ephesians 5 man, he is aware of these things. He's aware that he has an obligation to catering to his wife in the way that the Proverbs 31 woman knows that she is there to serve a king, okay. It's a delicate balance, but both people understand that they are called to a higher level of service, okay, to one another, primarily to one another, and then to their children, okay? And that they are called to be an example to those who are looking on at their marriage. So if the husband is responsive to his wife's needs, she is well taken care of. The wife is responsive to her husband's needs, he's well taken care of. They are a beautiful example of what God meant when he said, husbands, love your wives, wives, respect and submit to your husband. You are embodying the mandate God gave his sons and daughters, and you will be blessed immensely in your relationship by God. Your children will rise up and call you blessed. I mean, it's just a beautiful cycle of just walking in so much alignment, okay? So being responsive means that he is loyal to her emotionally. So we spoke briefly about, emotional cheating, which I believe absolutely counts as cheating, okay? Infidelity emotionally, okay? Stepping out on your wife for support that could very easily turn into sexual, infidelity, okay? Or just, getting attention from someone else who's not your wife. Your wife is your primary, admirer, okay? Your primary emotional support. Absolutely your only sexual support, okay? Sexual indulgence. And these are all ways that you remain responsive to her needs. How will you remain responsive to her needs if you're not emotionally invested in her well-being? See, it all ties in there, okay? So a responsive husband is loyal to himself first by guarding his sexual purity, okay? Making sure that he is not even mentally entertaining the thought of someone else. Okay, guarding his sexual purity, guarding his wife's sexual purity, making sure that she is protected in spaces, whether he's there or not. Okay, making sure that he has eyes on her, through friends and family if he can't be present, that she is never, exposed or vulnerable. Both in and out of his presence, he is able to protect her, and she represents him. He guards his purity, he guards her heart, and he is loyal to her. He is faithful to her, and he cherishes her. Okay? It really is a beautiful thing to be loved, to be taken care of, and to serve another. Okay? And God absolutely has standards, biblical standards that he has for his children who are allowed to enter into these beautiful covenants. Okay?